When you're making these end cuts, kind of go to the outside and just kind of rock your knife in. Go to the other side and just kind of rock your knife in. Same thing here. Rock it in, rock it in. You're trying to sever those fibers. Make sure that these cuts here that connect it are good. You got good separation of the fibers there. Then you'll be able to start prying that up a little at a time. Remember, you got a thin piece of wood on the inside here you got to worry about too, that you don't want to break. Everything's got to be done in stages. Rock our knife back and forth. Rock our knife. Rock our knife. Hopefully we can punch that right out just like that. Now we got two. Alright, now to the next trick. Now we've got to cut this out, okay? But we really want to leave this tip, okay? So we've got this shaded area now that needs to be cut out of this needle. And again, it's the same situation. You're just going to go across the grain this time very slowly, in slow increments like this, cutting across the grain until you get to that point. Do the same thing over here. You're actually going to have to sever the fibers now. You're not just to the point of trying to split the grain. You're severing fibers because now you've gone across the grain. So you've got to ensure that those cuts go nice and deep in there to cut across that grain. Get your basic outline done first here. And these Mora knives with the really, really sharp points on them make this a treat. Now, this part right here, you want to come in here and just point that off, just like that. Okay? You're going to come back in and trim this up anyway, but you want those two to intersect somewhere in here. And if they intersect out here in the middle of this thing, that's okay, as long as they don't come out here. Now we're going to come in here and we're going to do that same thing again, and we're just going to start picking pieces out a little at a time. But we got to make sure that everything's cut as we do that. Okay. Now when that square comes out, we've got our point sitting here. Now we need to do the same thing over here. We can make sure that we cut down into that really, really good to leave our point, just like that. Make sure that we sever all the fibers in there when we do that. And then do the same thing here. And then we should be able to pop that out. We'll come on this other side here real quick and just make a safety cut, just to make sure we're not connected anywhere right there. And we can pop that right out just like that. Okay. Now we have this part done, and we can start to get a little more comfortable about cleaning the inside of this up. Get into this inner area of this thing. This is when you're going to really start to have to finesse your knife, because you're going to hit grain going in different directions. So we're trying to get this squared up on the inside now. We've got a stop built in right here to keep us from hitting our hand. We should be able to come down and sever those fibers and knock those chips out. And just kind of flip it back and forth and get this squared up a little at a time. Just taking really, really thin slices off of this thing. You should be able to get in here and just kind of sweep that with a sweeping cut across that. Clean that curve out, and then come at it from the other side a little bit. Now we've got that pretty well cleaned out, we can start to work on this point a little bit. And we don't want this point thin enough that we're going to snap it off, because we're going to be wrapping it with line. And we're going to want to kind of bevel it on both sides when we're done. So for right now, we're just trying to thin it down enough and keep it even in the center. We want to keep it even in here. Doesn't really need to be fatter at the bottom than it is at the top much. If it is a little bit, that's okay. Okay, the best way to get this needle beveled is to come in here from the side. Just pull fine shavings off there at a time. This becomes our safety now, okay? We've got a hole in here we're working in. You've got the main part of this thing done now. The hardest part is complete. So really the last thing you want to do now is something to mess this thing up. So just take your time. Now, we're going to come in here and we're going to start to carve this in. Just like this. And I'm just carving straight out and away. Just like this. Okay? Increasing where I'm at every time. And walking up the tip. Just like that. Remember, I can come back in here and shape that thing later. Now I need to come over here and do essentially the same thing. Watching my line where it's at. Pretty good. It's not too bad. And once you get that carved in there, you can just kind of chamfer that a little bit as well. Just kind of sweep your knife across there. Across that grain if you can. Real gentle, just like that. You just kind of chamfer that down a little bit. Okay. Now all we need is a gauge. Our mesh gauge is the easiest part of this whole project because we can use another split piece of wood off of the same board. We want it to be thicker on one side, thinner on the other. We want it to be a little bit larger than our net needle. So we'll just trace a line right there like that. Come in here and split that dude off. Just like that to the line. We want it to be a little bit curved, so I'm just going to take that thing and shear it right off just like that. I can always make that curve more gentle here in a minute. Now we'll just curve this down gentle, like this. Split that bark side off a little bit there. Get rid of that. Get things shaped up here. A couple power cuts, just like that. Make sure we're pretty even. Bevel this just slightly. Just like this. Still a little thick right here. Just come in there with a couple slices. Just like that. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed our second project in our Sloyd or knife carving series, making a net needle and mesh gauge. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks guys.